Hey, seventh graders. I hope everyone is doing well. This is Ms. Richardson. This is for the week of January 11th through 15th. This week, we're going to start looking at rational numbers, adding and subtracting both positive and negative numbers. So hopefully you guys got the presentation, and I would love for you to print that off and follow along with me. If you can work ahead and just use the video to check your answers, that would be awesome. If you need to work along with me, that would be fine as well. So it's just up to you. So let me turn on my PowerPoint presentation and we'll do those together. Okay. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is a term, additive inverses. So basically it's two numbers that when you combine them, you get a quantity of 0. So for example, if I had 5, what number would I have to combine that with to get 0? The answer is -5. So in other words, if I had $5 and then I spent $5, I would have $0. What else would be an additive inverse? What would be the additive inverse of -10? Well, if I owed someone $10, in order to not owe them, I would have to pay them positive $10, right? So these are additive inverses. They're also called opposites. So the opposite of 20 would be -20. The opposite of -7 would be +7. The opposite of 1,000 would be -1,000. So these are all examples of additive inverse integers. Now an integer is just a whole number and its opposite. So the 20 is a whole number and its opposite is -20. So those are integers. So those all make up opposite numbers, and also they're called additive inverses. In other words, what number, if I wanted to add a number to 3 to get a sum of 0, well, I would have to add the additive inverse, which is -3. And that gives me an answer or a quantity of 0. All right. All right, so it says real world examples. Which examples can be combined to make 0? So let's look at the first one. I spent $10 on candy and then spent $10 more on a book. Well, would that have an equal value of 0? Nope, it would not. That just meant I spent $20, right? All right, I made $22 working, but then I spent $22 on Spotify. Would I have an answer of $0? Yes, that combines to make 0. All right, what if I rode my bike from home to the stop sign, then turn around and went back home? How far would I be from where I started? I would be exactly where I started. So those two actions would combine to make 0. A plane takes off from an airport, circles, and then comes right back to the airport. Well, how far is the plane from where it started? It's the same place. So that describes two events that would combine to make 0. Okay, so those are all examples of problems that you'll see as you're working through the lessons this week. Now it says to use a number line to model addition and subtraction. So the first part of the sentence tells me what to do first, obviously, and then the second part is going to be another arrow. I'll show you what I mean. So if Janice owed her dad $9, if you're in debt $9, that would be represented by a negative number. So that means that I'm going to start at 0. I owe, or Janice owes her dad $9. We're in debt $9, but then she paid him back from here. She pays him back $4. So if I start at -9 and I increase 4, that would put me at here, basically -5. So even though she paid her dad some money, she still owes him $5. She's still in debt to him $5. So that's how I would show that on this number line, okay? All right, let's look at the next one. Janice walked 5 blocks east. So if this is our starting place, east on this number line would be going to the right. She walked 5 blocks east. This pen aggravates me sometimes. 5 blocks east, so she's here. And then from here, she walks 5 blocks west. So she turns around, she goes the same direction from whence she came, and she would be back where she started. But we've just modeled that on a number line, those two scenarios. All right, we can also do them with regular subtraction and addition problems as well. So if you see a plus or a positive amount on a number line, that means for you to go in the direction, go to the right. If you see a minus, that means go to the left on a number line. So the positive 5 means I start out at positive 5. So I'm going to go, that is a positive number, even though I don't see a plus sign, I know it's a positive number. So I'm going to go to the right 5. And then from there, I'm going to go left 7. So I'm going to do this a little differently. Let me get rid of this. I'm just going to start at the first number. So the first number tells me to start at positive 5. So I'm going to start here. And I'm going to move left because I see a negative sign, 7 spaces. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to land on -2 because 7 is, -2 is 7 spaces to the left of positive 5. Okay. All right, let me get rid of that, and then I'm going to do the next problem. So let's look at the second problem. Whoopsie. Whoopsie. This thing works with me about half the time. All right, so what if we do the same thing here? Let's say we start at 5, and then it says we see a plus, that means go right, but then immediately after that we see a minus, which means we're going to actually make a left 7 spaces. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So once again, we got -2. So that tells us that this math problem and this math problem is exactly the same. They're equivalent. So 5 minus 7 gives us -2, and 5 plus a -7 gives us the exact same answer. So that's 2 different ways of writing the same math problem. Okay. All right, so let's look at this problem. It tells us we're going to start at -2. We're going to start here. And then what direction we go? Left. We're going to go left 6 spaces. So -2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 makes us land on -8. So that's like owing one person $2, owing someone else $6. That means we're in debt a total of $8. All right, let's get rid of that. And try this one. All right, it tells us we're starting at -6. We're going to start here, and we're going to go right 8. So we're going to go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces. So we're going to land at +2. So -6 plus 8 gives me +2. All right, now I know that you guys have looked at absolute value before, so let's review absolute value. So basically absolute value means what is the distance from 0 on a number line. So it wants to know how many spaces from 0 is 2 on a number line. Well, here's 2. How many spaces from 0? The answer is 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. Well, what about the absolute value of -2? Distance is always given as a positive quantity, right? It's always given as a positive quantity. You would never say I went -5 miles. You could say I went in one direction 5 miles, but you'd never say I went -5 miles. That doesn't make sense. So if we start at -2, how many spaces are we from 0? Well, we are 2 spaces from 0. So the absolute value of 2 is 2, and the absolute value of -2 is 2. The third one says, how many spaces from 0 is the number 10? Well, if I count back, I'm going to know that the absolute value of 10 is 10. Now, this problem is a little bit different. This asks first only what's in between the 2 lines. What's the absolute value of 10? The answer is 10. But then it's saying basically what is the opposite of the absolute value of 10. So the absolute value of 10 is 10, and the last thing we do is make it negative. So this is just like saying, what is the opposite of the absolute value of 10? All right, let's look at the next question. We're going to ignore this for just a minute. Ignore that, pretend it's not there. First thing we're going to do is what's inside the lines. So first of all, what is the absolute value of -7? The answer is +7, because distance is always a positive number. But then the last thing we do is find the opposite of that answer. So the opposite of +7 is -7. All right, the next one, 5 plus 2 is 7. We do what's inside those lines first, and then we find the absolute value of 7. How many spaces from 0 is 7? The answer is +7. All right, we do what's in the brackets first on this one. So 5 minus 2 is 3. And then we think, what is the absolute value of 3? And the answer is 3. This one was 4 minus 2. Well, 4 minus 2 is +2. And then we think, what is the absolute value of +2? The answer is +2. And then let's ignore this for a second. Ignore it. Think, what is the absolute value of 4 minus 2? Well, the absolute value, or 4 minus 2 is 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. But then the last thing we do, whoops, what did I do? Yeah, the last thing I do is think, okay, what's the opposite of that number? So the opposite of +2 is -2. So basically, look at the answers. If you have a negative sign outside those lines, your final answer is negative. If there is not a negative sign outside those absolute value lines, your final answer is going to be positive. That's always true. All right, so I have part of my, I can't see part of it. I think it says an airplane was 1,000 feet above sea level. So I'm such a great artist, you guys. You're going to be so impressed with me. All right, here's the sea. It's good, right? All right, an airplane is 1,000 feet. Look at this, you guys. I mean, it's so realistic. Look at my airplane. Let's put some windows on there. Woo! I should be an art teacher, right? All right, so 1,000 feet up here in the sky. Okay. Now under the sea is a submarine. Look at this, you guys. It gets better. Look at this. Right? I know. So if this is sea level, so basically this on a number line would represent 0. Okay. And this is obviously not drawn to scale because it should only be 300 feet below sea level. Well, 300 feet below sea level would be basically a negative number. Correct? But the question is, how far apart are the airplane and submarine? Well, a lot of people would say, oh, okay, well, that's a subtraction problem. So I'm going to subtract 300 from 1,000 and I get 700 feet. So you're telling me that these two things are 700 feet apart? No, because if I was in the airplane and I jumped into the sea, that's 1,000 feet already. And then I'd have to go down another 300 feet. This cannot be right. So if you go 1,000 feet and then another 300 feet, that is 1,300 feet. The airplane and the submarine are 1,300 feet apart. Okay. So when you read something, make sure your answer makes sense. If you end up doing that problem and you got 700 and then you look back at it, you should realize that can't be right. All right, let's look at this one. Joe walked 5 miles east in the morning. So Joe walked 5 miles east. So how many miles has he already gone? 5. And then he's going in the opposite direction, but he's walking 6 miles to the west. So would you say 5 minus 6? And you would say he went a total of -1 miles? No, that doesn't make sense. So basically you would have to find the absolute value of those numbers and say, okay, well, if he went 5 miles, plus if he turned around and went the other direction, well, we know distance is a positive number. So we're going to find out that Joe actually went a total of 11 miles. Okay, so even though, yes, turning in the other direction normally is a negative number, to figure out how much he walked in total, you would never say he walked -1 miles. That doesn't make sense. We don't say that. All right, what about this one? The high temperature on Monday was 10 degrees and the low temperature on Monday was -12 degrees. So if we had a thermometer, these old fashioned looking thermometers, we have a 0 on a thermometer. You could say it's 0 degrees. Well, if it was 10 degrees in the morning and -12 degrees in the afternoon, what was the temperature change? Well, in the morning it was 10 degrees plus, it was -12 degrees. We have to think about the absolute value of that. Well, the temperature was 10. It dropped 10 degrees to get to 0 and then another 12 degrees. That would be 22-degree temperature change, right? The temperature range was 22 degrees. It didn't just change by 2 degrees or -2 degrees. That doesn't make sense. There was 22 degrees between this number and this number. So don't just see numbers and start adding and subtracting them. You have to read and understand what it's asking you. Okay? All right, so that takes us into adding positive and negative numbers. So I have this awesome little song. Not only am I an artist, I'm like a singer, you guys. So I'm going to sing you a song, okay? So I want you to memorize this little song. You could Google it. You'll have a million different variations on this little song. But if you can remember these rules, it's going to help you when you're adding and subtracting negative and positive numbers. So you know the row, row, row your boat theme? So this goes, same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger digit, then you'll be exact. Did you hear my phone? It was like singing along with me. All right, I want you to sing it with me. You better sing. I'll know if you're singing. Same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger digit, then you'll be exact. That was beautiful, you guys. All right, but what does it mean? All right, so we have two numbers here. Well, we have a +5 and a +3. So these two numbers have the same signs, +5 and +3. That means we're going to add them and we're going to keep the sign. So 5 + 3 is 8. We've been doing that since first grade, right? Kindergarten. All right, so let's look at the next problem, number 2. It says different signs subtract. Well, we have a +5 and a -3. So guess what that means? It means that they have different signs. So what do? We subtract them. So in our heads, we're thinking, okay, what's the difference of 5 and 3? So the difference of 5 and 3 is 2. So that means the answer has to be either -2 or +2. So the way you get the sign of the answer is this part. You keep the sign of whichever digit is bigger. So is 5 bigger or is 3 bigger? Or think of the absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of -3. So 5 is bigger than 3. So since 5 is positive, the answer is positive. So that's what it means by different signs subtract, keep the sign of the bigger digit. That's what we did in our answer, and then you'll be exact. Okay? All right, number 3. Look at the two numbers. What do we have? We have a negative and a positive. So they have different signs. So once again, we're thinking of this part of the song, different signs subtract. So once again, we're thinking of the difference between 5 and 3 in our heads, which is 2. And then it says keep the sign of the bigger digit. Is 5 bigger or 3? 5 is bigger, and since it's negative, the sign of our answer is negative. So -5 + 3. That's like owing your dad $5 and only paying him $3. You still are in debt $2, right? And then finally, number 4, we have a negative number combined with a negative number. What does that mean? They have the same signs. All right, if they have the same signs, you add them. That's what the song says. And you keep the sign. Well, their signs are negative. So we add 5 and 3 and we know that's 8. Since both numbers are negative, we get -8. That's the answer. Okay? All right, I want you to pause the video. I want you to try these 4 problems and then turn the video back on and check your answers. All right, so what'd you guys do? How'd you do? All right, let's see the first one. These are same signs, so we add and keep the sign. Number 6, these are the same signs. Did you notice that? Oh, I should have put parentheses. If the second number is negative, it just gets parentheses. That's all. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just always the second number. If the first number is negative, it doesn't usually give it parentheses. All right, so number 6, we have 2 negative numbers, same signs, add and keep. So we're going to add 4 and 6, which is 10, and then we keep that negative because they're both negative numbers. Number 7, we have a positive and a negative. They have different signs. Different signs tell us to subtract. So I know the difference between 6 and 4 is 2. So is my answer positive or negative? Well, the bigger digit is 6, and 6 is negative. That means the answer is -2. And then number 8, they have different signs. So I'm going to subtract, keep the sign of the bigger digit. This time it's +2. How'd you guys do? I hope you got them all right. All right, now a little different when we're subtracting. So remember, so now notice this page right here. There's no plus signs, right? No plus signs. So that when I say subtracting integers, that's what I mean, that there's a negative or a minus sign between them. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is when you see a minus a negative, minus a negative. So do you see how it says 5 minus -3, 4 minus -2? All of these 4 examples are minus a negative. There used to be a cartoon on that was called The Flintstones. Have you guys seen or heard of it? Well, the little baby on Flintstones, his name was Bam Bam, because he walked around with a club and he hit everything and he said, bam, 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 bam. So anyway, I want you to think of Bam Bam when you see minus a negative. So the first thing you're going to do with your pencil when you see minus a negative is with your pencil, you're going to go bam, bam. Minus the negative, bam, bam. Minus the negative, bam, bam. And then minus the negative one more time, bam, bam, with your pencil. So I want you to think of bam, bam. Every time you see minus and negative, when they're right beside each other, we're not talking about if there's a number between the 2 signs. I'm talking about if they're right beside each other, before you add or subtract, I want you to do bam, bam with your pencil. Okay? So basically, we rewrote 5 minus the -3 to 5 plus 3. And you all know that 5 plus 3 is 8. 4 minus a -2, bam, bam. We rewrote it to 4 plus 2, and we know that 4 plus 2 is 6. 8 minus a -4, bam, bam. 8 plus 4 is 12. And then 10 minus a -2 is the same thing as 10 plus 2. We get 12. Now, why is that? So let's look at a number line. 5 minus a -3. All right, so we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, the first number tells us where to start. We're starting here. The negative sign tells us to go left, but then look again. There's another negative. Can we take 2 lefts? No, the only difference we have, instead of going left 3, oh, I didn't draw my number line right. I should have gone to 8. Duh, I messed that up. Just kidding. All right, so we can't take 2 lefts on a number line. The thing that cancels out going left is another negative, which means actually we're going to go right 3 spaces and we're going to land on +8. That's why 5 minus a -3 is the same thing as 5 plus 3. Okay, so let's try these problems on the bottom. You can pause the video and try them yourself if you want. Oh, well, first, no, don't do that yet. Don't do that. All right, so now we talked about doing that first. Now let's talk about when we see subtraction signs and no plus signs. I want you to do these 2 simple little things. I want you to look at the 2 numbers. I want you to circle the 2 terms. So the term is a number and the sign in front of it. So for letter A, I'm going to circle 5. I'm going to circle -3 or -3. It doesn't matter if you call it -3 or -3. It's the same thing. Well, look at the next question. Did you circle did the numbers you circle both have the same signs or different signs? Well, I have a +5 and a -3, which means they have different signs. So now we're going back to our little song we just sang. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. This is different signs. So we subtract them. The difference in 5 and 3 is 2. Then you pick the number, the sign of the bigger digit. 5 is bigger than 3, so the answer is +2. 5 minus 3 is 2. All right, letter B. First thing we're gonna do is think of these as two different terms. We have a -4 and a -6. Did we circle two numbers that have same signs or different signs? Same signs, so we're going to add them. Same signs, add and keep, yeah. So we get 10, and then you keep that sign, and you get -10. Letter C, before we do anything else, we do bam, 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 bam. 7, we changed it to actually 7 plus 3, and we know that 7 plus 3 is 10. Letter D, we have a positive and a negative, right? We circled two numbers that have different signs. The song tells us if we have different signs, subtract. So the difference in 6 and 9 is 3. You pick the sign with the bigger digit. So the answer is -3. Letter E, we circle our two terms. Well, we circled two numbers that have the same sign. So the song says same signs, add, and we keep the sign. So we get -14. All right, this one we're gonna do bam, bam. I see minus and negative. Do it every time you see minus and negative right beside each other, minus and negative. So basically we rewrote this to -3 plus 2. Now we have two numbers that have different signs subtract, keep the sign of the bigger digit, and we get -1. Letter G, we're going to circle our terms. We have a positive and a negative. That means they have different signs subtract, keep the sign of the bigger digit. 8 minus 9 is -1. And then letter H, same thing. We circle, we have different signs subtract. We keep the sign with the bigger digit, which is +2. All right, I hope you guys got all those right. I bet you did. Now, rational numbers. So the last one said subtracting integers. Integers are whole numbers. But even with rational numbers like fractions and decimals, the same rules apply. So for our fractions, we can add and subtract as long as the denominators are the same. So for subtracting, we think of this as a positive combined with a negative. Different signs, we subtract. You only subtract the numerators. 5 minus 3 is 2. You keep the sign of the bigger digit. 5/9 is bigger than 3/9, and it's positive, so the answer is 2/9. All right, we have two positive numbers. If we have two positive numbers, same signs, add and keep. So our denominator stays a 9. We add 5 and 3, and we get 8. My pen hates 9s. It hates 9s. It always wants to change it. All right, here we have bam, bam. Do you see this? Minus a negative, bam, bam. So basically, guys, we just rewrote this to -5/9 plus 3/9. Do they have same signs or different signs? Different signs, so we're subtracting. So the difference in 5 and 3 is 2, but we keep the sign of the bigger digit. This is bigger than the second one, so the answer is -2/9. Number 4, we have two terms. They're both negative. When they have the same signs, you add them and you keep the sign. You keep the sign and we get -8/9. All right, same thing with decimals. Same rules apply with decimals, all right? So look at number 5. We have two numbers with different signs, so we subtract them. So we got to line up those decimals. Line up those decimals. That's a positive. We're combining it with a negative. So are we adding or subtracting? We are subtracting. So keep those decimals lined up. We're going to make that a 15 and this a 6. So 15 minus 6 is 9. And then 6 minus 3 is 3. Bring that decimal straight down. So 0.39, and it is positive because this is the bigger digit. All right, here we have two negative numbers. That means we're going to add, and the answer is going to be negative. So we're going to line up those decimals. We're adding, so 8 plus 6 is 14. 10 plus 5, 5 plus 5 basically is 10. Bring that decimal straight down. And they're both negative numbers, so the answer is negative 10.4. All right, same thing here. We have a negative, and we are subtracting. So basically, we have two negative numbers. I think I meant to put a negative sign in here. I think that's what I meant to do. That's why I have those parentheses, which it would have been a bam, bam question, bam, bam, but anyway, I typed it wrong. So the way it's written, we do have to add them. What have I done? I messed up my pen. Did I? All right, so we're going to add them. So we got to line up those decimals on top of each other. Even though it says minus, we're adding because they have the same sign. So 9 plus 4 is 13. 10 plus 1 is 11. And since they're both negative, we're adding and we're keeping the sign. Negative 11.3. And then finally, these are both positive numbers. So we line up those decimals, bring that decimal straight down, and we get 10.3, and it's positive. Okay? All right, you guys. I think one more page, maybe. Yeah? All right. Yep, one more page. All right, anyway. All right, so when you have multiple numbers like this, the one thing I like to do is I like to get my positive numbers together. And then I think of, okay, these are both my negative numbers. So I know I have to add positive numbers, and I know I have to add negative numbers. So let me do that first. So we're going to add our positive numbers. 4 plus 2 is 6. Bring down the decimal. We get 15. So that's positive. And then on this side, we'll combine negative 3.2 and negative 2.1. They're both negative, so we're actually going to add them, basically, right? 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. So now we have positive 15.6 combined with negative 5.3. So now we have a positive and a negative together. So what would we do? Positive and negative, we are going to end up subtracting, and we keep the sign of the bigger digit. Well, the bigger digit's positive. So 6 minus 3 is 3. Bring down the decimal. 15 minus 5 is 10. So the final answer is positive 10.3. Positive 10.3. Okie doke. All right, so let me get rid of all that stuff. Use a number line to answer this question. So remember how we did that? The first number tells us where to start, positive 3, and combining it with a negative 5. So this would tell us to go right, but then we have to follow this rule. What does the negative mean? It means go left on a number line. So from negative 3, we're going to go left 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just showed that negative 3 combined with a negative 5 is negative 8. All right, what about 2 plus a negative 3 on the number line? All right, let's start at positive 2. We're going to combine it with, that means go right, but then we can't ignore that minus sign. That means we're ultimately going to go left 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3, and where do we land? Negative 1. So 2 plus negative 3 equals negative 1. So then the next question is, why is the answer negative 1? And the answer is because we ended up 3 units to the left of 2 on a number line. Okay? Why is the answer negative 1? Because negative 1 is 3 units to the left of 2 on a number line. And you'll have a question like that coming up on a quiz. So I just wanted to show you why that's the answer. All right, you guys, next week you'll have your mid-module check. We still have a few more days before we get there. So anyway, hopefully this video helped you guys. And you can go back and refer to it and look at my examples again and review your notes. Make sure you guys have a math notebook, and make sure when you're going through your lessons, if there are example problems, you need to write them all down. You don't need to just sit there and watch the video solve problems for you, or you don't need to just look at examples that's been worked out for you. You need to write down the problems and the work in your notebook so you can go back and refer to them. All right, does that make sense? All right, you guys, so we have a Zoom meeting on Friday at 11 o'clock. So make sure any questions you have, well, first of all, you don't have to wait till Friday. You can email me anytime, but make sure if you do have specific questions you want to go over, make sure you bring them to the Zoom meeting. Okay, guys? All right, I hope everyone has a good week, and make sure you're doing your work. No zeros, no zeros. All right, I'll see you guys later.